Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another exciting version of Chip Talks Health. Today, we're going to talk about mast cells, which is pretty exciting. A lot of you guys out there have mast cell issues. You certainly know someone who is having mast cell issues. So, if you have food sensitivities, if you have IBS type symptoms, if you have diarrhea, if you have skin reactions like rashes or hives or eczema, if you have sinus congestion, if you have flushing in your face or chest, if you have temperature dysregulations, if you have low blood pressure or lightheadedness, if you have POTS like symptoms, meaning you stand up and you get dizzy if you stand up too quick, if you have swelling of your hands, feet, eyes, eyelids, if you have anxiety where you feel wired but tired, if you have panic like episodes, brain fog, headaches, migraines, light sensitivity, sound sensitivity, burning or tingling sensations, fatigue, chronic inflammation markers, allergy like symptoms without a clear allergen, asthma or airway reactivity, joint pain, diffuse aches, if you have exercise intolerance, poor recovery, blood sugar instability, sleep dysregulation, or general fragility feeling, then you likely have something going on with your mast cells. This is a big area, and this is mainly I'm doing this podcast mainly because of, let's say, observations that we see in our non-medical clinic. And that is, a lot of people come in and they're very sensitive. So when we start, let's say, trying to attack an infection with natural products, their symptoms get worse. And a lot of times those symptoms have to do with skin type issues. So eczema or itching or rashes or breakouts of skin. Sometimes it's acne. But the people who have, let's say, this very sensitive mast cell issue are sensitive, and they need to be handled, let's say, in a certain way. But we, in the traditional medical system, so we look at this as, you would be diagnosed, let's say, with some kind of mast cell disorder, right? So your mast cells somehow are broken, or your ability to control your mast cells is somehow messed up. That doesn't appear to be the case at all. It appears to be other reasons there. So again, in our model, the way that we look at things, mast cell activation. So if you're having mast cell activation, that's a sign of stress. That means that you're stressed in some way. So your mast cells are reacting. They're not, just didn't happen, right? Just God is a perfect engineer. Again, he doesn't say one day, Chip, I think I'll have your mast cells get super tweaky and irritated today. It doesn't work that way, right? Life doesn't work that way. You don't work that way. You're not designed that way. You're designed perfect, honestly. So in order for mast cells to be tweaked out or freaked out, there has to be an underlying reason and cause. So we're going to talk that through. But let's level set a little bit. So a lot of us tend to think of, let's say, and this is a weird place to start this conversation, I know, but it'll go somewhere, I promise you. But a lot of us think of life as binary, right? So we're alive or we're dead. And there's no question, once you're dead, right? But is there is there a continuum of being alive? And it looks like, yeah, there is. It's kind of like a dimmer switch. Okay. So there's a full on intensity for you, a full on alive, that we're nowhere near right now, which is interesting. We could be if we got smarter, but right now we're nowhere near, let's say, our full on dimmer switch. We're somewhere probably in the middle to the bottom half of kind of a dimmer switch. So all of us are kind of walking around mostly alive, I guess is the best way to say it. Our dimmer switch is not what it should be. So if you think of alive and dead as more of a continuum of things, we're kind of right in the middle right now. We certainly aren't as far over here in alive as we could be. And why is that? Well, none of us are eating our essential nutrients that we need every day. So again, what are your essential nutrients? You don't know. We've done podcasts about those. So go back and look at some of those podcasts and we'll inform you what your essential nutrients are. But without essential nutrients, basically our barriers fail. So, we build a weak border wall and we get invaded by stuff. With essential nutrients, we build a strong border wall. And, we can still send in, let's say, ICE agents to deport some of the bad guys that came over our border wall. And that's kind of more of our strategy. So we want to talk to you about your border wall, and then we want to talk to you about infection and things that might be causing, let's say, inflammation and oxidative stress that have gotten over your border wall. We want to address those. So strong border, strong back end immune system. But again, if you're at half volume, if your dimmer switch, let's say, is halfway down, can you do that in the same way that, someone with a full on dimmer switch would do? No, absolutely not. So it's important to understand, let's say, this dimmer switch in our immune system and where we are. So how would you know where you are in the dimmer switch? Are you eating essential nutrients? So what is your measure of omega-3 to omega-6? If that's like most of us, then that's a lessened dimmer switch. Where are you on protein and collagen? If you're like most of us, you're malnourished in protein and collagen. So again, that turns the dimmer switch down a little more. Where are you in B and C vitamins? Now there's 16 B vitamins and probably 8 of them are super important. So if you're a B12 person, that's not enough. So B and C vitamins, where are you in B and C vitamins? And if you're not taking those every day, that's going to turn your dimmer switch down even more. So most of us have a pretty diminished dimmer switch. Well, what that means is that we don't, we're not normal. Okay. We're not normal. We're almost unstudyable. And we certainly don't react to things in a normal fashion or like we would with a full on dimmer switch, right? So important to know that when we look at us and we look at our function and we look at things like mast cells, we need to understand where we're at in the dimmer switch. And if we're only halfway up, again, we're not going to respond like normal. We're not going to have the horsepower to fight stuff off. Our cells are not going to respond like they could, let's say, in a high optimized state. So what does that mean to mast cells? Well, mast cells are like these intelligent cells. Okay. So mast cells kind of sit between your barriers, and their mast cells are located in our gut, in our lungs, in our skin, places where you're going to be exposed to the outside environment. And the purpose of mast cells is really kind of an early warning system. So, something's trying to invade me at XYZ a place. I need to let everybody know. And so mast cells do that. And part of the things that mast cells are really good at is detecting change in environment. Then they're also really good at coordinating response. So if you have something that's infecting you or trying to infect you in your gut, again, mast cells are going to be the way that your general body knows about that. And mast cells are going to be a way that you marshal a defense against that thing. Okay. So what happens without in nutrient deficiency? Again, we're going to get poor ability to repair ourselves. We're just going to get basically, you're going to get all kinds of warning signals, let's say from that tissue system, that are going to be translated into mast cells. The mast cells are going to basically detect the reasons for a lack of nutrient. That might be lack of nutrients there, or if you can't absorb those nutrients, it's going to understand that you've got a lot of microbial fragments, a lot of toxins, a lot of, let's say, damage signals hitting those cells, which is communicated back to the mast cells, and they're going to wig out. Okay. So what is it that would cause this to happen? Like what would cause these mast cells, let's say, to be tweaky? Well, certainly a lack of amino acids. Amino acids are kind of how we do repair. Certainly a over consumption of omega-6, so too many omega-6s over omega-3s in mast cell membranes will cause them to be very reactive and very sensitive and very inflammatory. Also a lack of vitamins and minerals. So, enzymes, you can't really control enzymes without vitamins and minerals. And so we've got to have those control surfaces in order to really control the response of those mast cells. So again, if those guys are deficient, they're not going to be performing in the way that they should, and they're going to go to extreme rather than kind of be the buffers that they need to be. So mast cell issues are really, it's not a disease, first of all. It's just sort of a misconfiguration inside of you, caused by lack of essential nutrients. So mast cells are more of a kind of a signaling problem than they are a disease. And mast cell activation really is more, pathogen related rather than, a disease state, right? So why are these disorders increasing? So why are we seeing so many more of these disorders? And right now, let's say you have eczema, right? And you know that your eczema at certain times, like, it might be weather related, it might be menstrual cycle related, it might be food related. But you know that these things cycle, right? So my eczema cycles, and my eczema cycles because of infection cycles and pathogen cycles and all that. But when we get in and try to really do things with somebody who's in a real tweaky mast cell environment, they tend to react, and they tend to react strongly. And so let's say as a treatment, what we want to do is we want to get into that situation, and we want to restore those essential nutrients first to mast cells. So we want to kind of get them calmed down. And in our current environment right now, you've got to understand. So none of us understand essential nutrients. We all get invaded by stuff. That stuff, whether it's good stuff or bad stuff, you have good, microbes in your biome. Well, those good microbes could still cause a mast cell reaction, just depending on how you're identifying them in those cells. So let's say the tweakiness of those cells, the reactivity of mast cells is directly related to omega-3, omega-6, and also nutrient status. So as they're basically looking at insults, again, if they're really reactionary, it doesn't take much of an insult to send them off and get them to begin to release histamine. So one of the things that mast cells do when they're really, really freaked out is they'll release histamine. Histamine is what causes allergic reactivity. Okay. So histamine is directly, responsible for allergic reactivity. It's also what would cause anaphylactic shock. Okay. So histamine is something that your body uses to inflame and to kind of cause, let's say, reaction. In a mast cell situation, though, if those mast cells are super sensitive, that histamine reaction can get completely out of bounds. So something like atopic dermatitis, so if you run your finger across your skin and you get a red mark, that is something called atopic dermatitis. That only happens in high IgE and high histamine situations where you've got a lot of mast cell activation. Same thing with eczema, it's just a different expression. Same thing with a lot of skin and, let's say, acne type situations are going to be directly related to mast cells. Okay, so if you've got this going on, what do you do? So if you've got these very tweaky and, hyperreactive mast cells and they're expressing themselves as maybe gut issues or maybe skin issues, what can you do? Well, first of all, come in. Let's see you at Neighborly Wellness. And if you can't get to Neighborly Wellness, give us a call at Neighborly Wellness and let's have a conversation, because it's important to understand your situation. So, what is your essential nutrient situation? Are you aware, of essential nutrients, and, are you deficient in essential nutrients? And then what is your infection situation? So it really helps us to scan you to get an understanding of what you might be infected with. And then from there, we build a treatment plan. But that treatment plan almost always is, number one, essential nutrients. So if you are having mast cell type problems, I would encourage you to go to TrueMedics. I would encourage you to look at that TrueMedics essential nutrient package. But omega-3s in particular are something that we need to get that omega-3, omega-6 ratio in line. That is what lights these guys on fire. So if you have a bunch of omega-6 over omega-3 in your cell walls and your mast cell walls, they're going to be super reactionary and tweaky. How do you fix that? Easy. Eat more omega-3. So omega-3s are really important in the strategy here, and omega-3s and omega-6s are essential nutrients that we need to eat in balance. The second category of stuff is protein, but mainly collagen. And again, collagen is super important to how these mast cells come together. They have to communicate between themselves, and that's in the extracellular matrix, and that is collagen. That is basically a collagen substrate. So you need good collagen and good collagen signaling in order for these guys to communicate. And again, that is in our GI rebuild product, and we also help you get your stomach acid up. The last category are vitamins, trace minerals, and metals. If you're like I was, then you probably spend a lot of time on TikTok or whatever, and you go out and you find, what do I need for my mast cell problem? NAD+, you need CoQ10, you need resveratrol, you need all this mitochondrial stuff, you need iron, you need magnesium, all that. And the stuff that basically you need to build all that is in our vitamin package. So our essential nutrient multivitamin will let you build NAD+, and you build that from niacin. We'll let you build CoQ10. We'll let you build all of these things that you need. And it's got all the metals in it that you need. It's a complete product, okay? So anyway, that product will also help with mast cells. Again, without vitamin C, you're not going to be able to build collagen. You're not going to be able to build the extracellular matrix. Without vitamin B, the cells need B vitamins in order to create enzymes and do the work that they're trying to do, and they just won't function in the way that they should without B vitamins. So if you're having mast cell issues, the biggest thing that you need to do is get on essential nutrients. And within, let's say, again, within a month, you should change your situation. Within 6 months, you should resolve your situation. Yeah, how's that? Resolve your situation. I mean, this isn't a disease. It's a signaling problem. It's a signaling problem caused by a lack of nutrients, okay? But then past that, you also are likely infected. So infection is like the spark, let's say, that causes, mast cells to go off. And other things can do it, but it's mainly infection. So with mast cell strategy, what we first want to do is calm everything down. Get those mast cells calmed down, get them to function correctly, right? And then we want to begin to remove the insults. But with mast cells, with some things, we go right at the insults first, and essential nutrients are later. With mast cells, we got to go a little slower. It's going to take a little longer to get you past whatever you're going through, like eczema outbreaks and skin outbreaks and stuff. So we got to go a little slower, and we got to start with those essential nutrients. We got to get your stomach acid back up. Then we can go in and attack the infections. Anyway, if you guys have questions, leave them in the comments. We're always around. We're always looking at those comments, so happy to answer those. Come see us at Neighborly Wellness. If you are not in the Edmond or Oklahoma City area, make an appointment. Let's have a consultation. Check out True Medics, especially our essential nutrients. So important to how again, without oil and gas, how do you get your car down the road? Without oil and gas, how do you start your chainsaw? Without essential nutrients, what happens to you? Well, you certainly aren't going to be all you can be. So minimally, go get those essential nutrients. Let's get your mast cells in shape. Let's get that eczema toned down. Let's go. All right, we'll leave it there for this time, and we'll see you back next time with another exciting episode of Chip Talks Health. Bye, guys.